What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. In today's episode, we are back focused on the boat, but we are here in the shop because we're working on the engines. So we are using LSX engines for the boat. Now the engines aren't in yet, but we have a dummy placement LS engine that we can work off of. And what we need to do now is DIY a bunch of marine accessories for our application and our transmissions onto this engine so we can start getting it ready as all one package and get it into the boat. So in today's episode, we're gonna start doing that. We're gonna start troubleshooting and figuring our way through how we're gonna make an LS race engine work in a marine application. Stay tuned. Before we get down to work, I want to take a second out to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Keeps. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of male pattern baldness before they are 35. Chelsea just told me I have some thinning going on back here. And the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something while you still have some hair left. And that's where Keeps comes in. Keeps offers scientifically proven treatments that combat symptoms of hair loss. And you don't have to go broke to avoid going bald. Keeps offers the generic version of the only 2 FDA approved hair loss treatments out there. And Keeps has made it really easy the way that you get your medication. Your medication is just delivered right to your door every 3 months, so you don't have to worry about the lines in the pharmacies and the annoying, awkward visits to the doctor and things like that. And like I said before, guys, prevention is key. And treatments can take like 4 to 6 months just before you start seeing results. So you want to act fast, you want to act now. I think we might not be 4 months away from summer, but we're probably a solid 4 months away from no more beanie weather. So think about that. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, guys, go to keeps.com/BisForBuild or click the link in the description and you're gonna get 50% off of your first orders. That's KEEPS.com/BisForBuild, just like the channel name. Go there and you'll get 50% off your first order. Thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this episode. Let's get down to work. So this guy might look a little familiar to some of you guys who have been watching long enough. Around this time last year, actually a few months ago, shy of a year ago, we had this in the back of our Huracan, which became the BurntCon. It's our mock-up LS engine. So this is a 5.3 iron block truck engine we bought from a junkyard. Doesn't run very well at all, but it probably would run if we built it all up. And this has all the same bolting spots as our LSX block will. So this is a really good template to be working off of and building off of. And it is kind of our test subject moving forward. So getting started, we're going to figure out mating a marine transmission to an LS engine. Inside here are some ZF transmissions. I'll tell you the actual model number in a second when I open this box up and remember what it is. They're pretty spendy. It's about 10 grand for both of these, one for each engine, and so we'll only be busting out one. And then we have things like the bell housing, the flex plate, the dampening plate, and other things like that to get the power delivered, from the LS out our transmission. So let's go ahead and unbox this, take a look around, see how we're going to be able to try and connect this thing up, and just see what happens. We're in unknown territory here, guys. Well, we got a flywheel, we got a bell housing, and we got a transmission in this box. Now we are missing some parts. It's got me a little concerned. Yay, we found everything. That's a dampening plate, and that's what we were missing, so that's what had me worried. Now here's the package of how I did a lot of research in the last few weeks about how we're gonna mate the LS to this transmission. So this is a ZF85A, and this has a 2-to-1 gear reduction ratio. So every time the engine spins twice, this will spin our prop. It's hard to see down here. Our prop will spin once. So that's it. That's the only gear. Well, so it's got forward, neutral, and reverse as well. It can be run full speed in reverse or full speed in forward, which is a big deal for something like an LS because we didn't want to do reverse rotation. That's not something that Texas Speed has built before, a reverse rotation engine. Because if you didn't know, on a boat, one prop spins one way, the other prop spins the other direction because it's good.
Science.
So that's why this brand of transmission was actually selected, is because we're going to be able to have both the engines turn in the standard automotive way, and then one will by default run like that way to go forward, and the other will run like that to go forward. So anyways, this is a ZF85A transmission, runs about a little shy of 5 grand, and it should be quite the unit and handle the power that we're putting out to the boat. So moving on, that connects up with the bell housing, which is right here. In theory, this bell housing can mate to an LS. This is what what the Crusader engines use, so that should be good to go. And then you're going to see a spline on here, so that mates that face of that to the face of the LS, and how they engage is with the spline right here. That spline goes into the dampening plate, which is right here. And this dampening plate has these springs in here like you see in a clutch, and that's to absorb some of the vibration every time each cylinder fires off in the LS. So it's meant to bring down some of the vibrations. The dampening plate bolts to this flywheel right here, which then is going to bolt to our crank, and then the flywheel is engaged by the starter, and that is the whole package back here. That's how the power goes from the crank right here, through the flywheel, through the dampener, through the spline in the transmission, through the transmission, drops down gear ratio, and then flies out the back, out our propeller, goes into the water, pushes our boat forward, backwards, whatever we want to do. Whew, that was a lot. So we want to do a mock assembly. We kind of thought that the hardware might come with this, but in fact it did not. So we're going to use some temporary hardware, and we're going to start with the first piece, which is the flywheel. This is pretty cool. So we got the flywheel and the dampening plate bolted on here. Remember guys, just temporary hardware. It will be replaced. I should mention now too that this engine is being held up here by mainly by the ceiling. This is just kind of to help steady it down here. So the next piece to do is the bell housing. Once we get the bell housing on, we can test fit our trans, which we're going to have to use the cherry picker and hoist it up there. And then once we test fit the trans into there and we know it all bolts up, that's a slam dunk. So let's go ahead and get the bell housing on and see where we land after that. Good news, we got the bell housing on and it clears all of our other madness that we've got in here. So one of the other things that I want to look at is the starter. So you can see that there are two different positions here to allow the starter to mount in either position. Let me show you the starter. This is our starter right here. Now everything that is an accessory on this system, the starters, the alternators. Is there anything else electrical on here? Is that seriously just it? Yeah. Starters, alternators, the water pump isn't electrical. No, that's mechanical. Okay, yeah, so it's just the starters and the alternators. They all have to be designed for marine applications. So I had to buy these off of other marine applications that are likely to work on ours because they are designed not to throw sparks or anything and be safe for running an engine inside a cabin like our engine compartment is. So this is off of a Volvo engine. That's not a Volvo engine. It does bolt up like I just did a bunch of research online, but this is one of those things you never know until you have it. It does bolt up, but now we got to make sure that it will engage with the engine and also that it's going to spin the right direction. So we're going to do a bench test on this, and with a starter you just need to have a ground onto the bare metal, and then it's hard to point, but power here and then a signal power over here, and it should spin up for us. So we're going to go ahead and give that a shot right now. We got a battery on the ground, some jumper cables, and we'll get this all sorted. And if it spins the right way, then we get to check engagement. Get ready for a powerful blender. Nope. We got sparks.
It's wanting to go. The battery's too dead.
Really? Yeah. Oh, it is. Oh. Why doesn't it go? Oh,
the battery's dead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's charge the battery. All right, we gave the battery some time to charge up. Let's see this thing. So it should shoot out a little bit. There we go.
Oh, and it's spinning opposite than what I thought.
I think that's the right way.
Okay, so we know it spins that way.
Okay, so if it spins that way.
Oh, wait.
It makes this thing spin this way, which when you flip it around, spins this way.
I'm kind of curious to see if it might spin the other way if we reverse those plugs.
No, it just does nothing.
Doesn't do anything. Okay.
Well, let's bolt it in there and just see which way it makes the engine turn.
I don't think it has enough power right now.
Oh, of course it does. We've been bamboozled. We can't bolt it up because this bell housing is made, I guess, by an American company that still uses SAE bolts. So we're gonna unbolt it and head down to the bolt store and try and find some bolts. Back from the bolt store, we managed to source 5 bolts, which is kind of enough. So we're gonna go ahead and mount the starter and test engagement on the engine. Let's do it. All right, this isn't B is for smart. This is B is for build. We can't find another cable to do the grounding, so grounding bar, power thing. So when Oscar hits that, theoretically, we need this guy to spin clockwise.
Ready?
Yep.
No.
Nothing. You gotta wire it up right. Come on, Oscar, you can do this. So that's grounded to that. That's grounded to that. Is that not touching? Oh, it's not touching.
It's not? It's touching the plastic?
Yeah, I think it's on the plastic. Is it?
I will.
Oh, no, it's on there. Yeah, it's not on the plastic. Here, double.
Touch
I'll hold it here, yeah. Nothing there. Nope.
Oh, got a spark there.
Okay, hang on. All right, hang on. Let me get out of here so I can look at the front. So it engaged well, which is great.
Did it turn the flywheel?
Yes, it did turn the flywheel. So now as long as this guy goes... Yeah, clockwise.
Clockwise?
Clockwise. And it engages. And that battery's trash. We gotta throw it away. All right, woo, big success. Okay, we have a bell housing and a flywheel and a damper plate and a starter that are all working together.
Yay.
Hey, this is a big breakthrough. This means I ordered a lot of the right parts without really knowing if everything was going to work. Now one interesting thing is to make sure that this thing is going to clear the transmission. As you can see, we can also mount it over here. Either way will work. So we're going to go ahead and get the transmission out of its little crate, hoist it up, and get it bolted on. We'll only have 3 bolts to make it happen, but that'll be enough for now. Ain't that a beauty? Got an LS engine, made it to a random bell housing, to a Volvo starter, to an Italian transmission. And it all works. This is a pretty sweet milestone for me. That means we ordered all the right stuff, because keep in mind, we have 2 of everything here coming, so do one thing wrong, it starts to add up and become very expensive. But everything is working, so you know, the transmission is engaged with the dampening plate now, which is engaged with the flywheel, which as we know is already engaged with the engine. The starter is turning the engine in the right direction. I mean, it's all a win. So now we're gonna move on and start researching the fitting size that we need for our transmission cooler. So this is where the transmission oil is gonna wanna go in and out. And this is the cooler that we're going to be using. Yes, it is massive because it came off of our other diesel engine, but these heat exchangers are very, very, very expensive. So the more of these that we can reuse, the better we're going to be. On the oil cooler side of the world, we got a little stumped. All we found out is that this plug is the right size, so we're going to take this down to the hardware store tomorrow and get that size figured out. So moving on. Now on the front, we have to mount a bunch of different accessories, and let me go over the accessories that we need to mount. So right here, we're going to have a harmonic balancer. That's pretty standard. And then here we're going to have the engine water pump that pumps the water, the coolant, through the engine. Now that's a closed loop. No, there's no seawater enters into this engine anywhere at all. It pumps the antifreeze through the engine and through a heat exchanger and then back through the engine again. Now accessories wise, here's what else we got to mount. We have a 12 volt alternator right here, and this is off of a Mercruiser engine. So this is a Marine 12 volt alternator that will power the engine side of the world. The 12 volt system for the engine and the ECU and the ECU screens will all be powered off of a battery, standalone battery, one for each engine, and a 12 volt alternator will recharge that battery. Coming over here, we have a 24 volt alternator. This is off of a Volvo Penta engine, another Marine alternator. This is going to charge a 24 volt system that is the entire rest of the boat. So the boat's lights and the, you know, everything inside the cabin, everything like that is ran off of about, I don't know, maybe 12 different very large battery packs that run on a 24 volt system because it's European. So this is a 24 volt alternator. And then we have the raw water pump. This is a raw water pump off of, I don't remember which type of engine, but a gas, I think it's off of a small block application. The belt is the same pulley size and everything like that. Water's gonna get sucked in here, and go out there. So what this does is it'll mount on our accessory system somewhere here, leads out to the back part of the boat where it's going to pick up water through a filter, goes in, and then that'll push the water through our heat exchangers, through our exhaust system, everywhere that the raw water goes before it exits out through our exhaust. So not a lot of stuff that we have to mount onto this engine as far as accessory drive. It's 2 alternators and a raw water pump. We have a tensioner right here, tensioner pulley to keep the belt tight, a couple different pulleys here. And what these are is just some generic bracket sets that are not going to work with, probably not going to work with this alternator, definitely won't work with that one, won't work with this, but they are bracket sets that are used to hold accessories kind of out here, and I bought them just because I figured it'd be a really good starting point, because building these brackets is going to be very, very difficult because everything has to land 100% dead nuts straight so that belt doesn't slip when we're running at 6,000 RPMs, which is a pretty challenging task. So I'm going to go ahead and get the harmonic balancer installed right now, and then we'll start looking at these brackets. That balancer fought us the whole way, but adding a little bit of science, we did some measurements to make sure it was on there all the way. Everything's looking great. So now, our goal is to start figuring out how we want to do this before we start fabricating. The goal is to have both the alternators up high, the raw water pump down as low as we can get it, and we have these brackets and different tools at our disposal to make this all happen. And we have to keep some sort of a tension. Now, keep in mind there is going to be a water pump here. We just haven't gotten it in from Holley yet. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with the bracket that goes up here first and see if we might get lucky and see if that alternator is like a standard automotive size. We might be able to get one thing mounted right out of the gate. The first alternator is on, and we actually got lucky and it's aligned. Now it's not all the way on, let me show you. So the alternator fit and was built to go into this bottom section right here. The alternator is supposed to bolt in here and here. And then we have this top part that does not. This top part is though in line with this, so we're gonna, through a series of spacers and new bolts and stuff like that, basically build a bracket that comes down to here, bolts into this right here, and up here, and bolts in like that to that. So before we start running around building brackets and go to the hardware store, we wanna jump into the other side, which is bound to be a lot harder because this alternator is definitely not gonna fit. The water pump's definitely not gonna fit. But it'll be good to see what this bracket does for us and the space that it gives us and what we figure out from there. So we're gonna go ahead and get that bracketry installed. Oh, and we have an auto tensioner, which is important. We got one of those, that's great. As we kind of expected, the second bracket got us close, and it's helpful, but it's not, anything that can directly bolt up. So I am working on the alternator side of the world. Basically, that top piece that has 2 holes is going to mount in right about here. The bottom is going to come around here, and we're going to have a bolt through. So we don't have the materials. We have to buy very specific materials that are very specific widths and everything like that to be able to fabricate these correctly. But we're going to start doing mock-up phases and getting our measurements and everything written down, our designs kind of planned out. So I'm going to start mine out of cardboard. Over here, Oscar is working on what he's building for the raw water pump. So the raw water pump is going to mount off of these 4 bolts here. It's going to come out, and it's pretty simple. The plate goes around all of those bolts right there to be able to have a bunch of spots to bolt into the raw water pump, and it comes right off of there. Everything that we build, we got to build 2 of, so we're trying to make it simple but very efficient. And yeah, so I'm going to get to we're going to both get to start mocking these up. right, it's a new day and we've got our bracketry design. So we got some bolt-on plates that are gonna go on the block like we showed you earlier, and then a faceplate that goes onto the raw water pump right there. This is the large 24-volt alternator bracket that's gonna go up on the top right accessory. And this is the final little piece of bracket that is going to help us finalize the mount for the alternator that's right there. So we just got to do one more thing, which is make sure that they're all going to work together. So we got the raw water pump here, and we're going to bring that over. This pumps ocean water, or we don't really go in the ocean, but river water, you know, around the system to cool the heat exchangers. That right there is a Holley actual LS water pump, and it's going to pump the coolant, antifreeze, through our engine, and we need to make sure that these two things are going to play together. So you see the ports on the engine where the water flows through it. We're going to go ahead and slap that baby in place and then make sure that this fits as well. Yeah, did I order one that works? I think you're backwards. You got to flip it around. Yeah, it's going to be sketchy. They shouldn't hit that bracket. Okay. Okay, it almost hits that bracket. Wow, that's close. I think we're going to even need to get bolts and make sure we have it really in the right spot.
Oh no.
Oh no, indeed. The belt, yeah, we're going to have to design a belt. Okay, so
actually it might work because if you'd have to put a tensioner right here, so it wraps around this way and then it goes up this way.
Oh, well, I don't know if we need a tensioner to do that. Oh, I see what you mean. Pulley. A pulley? I don't know if we can make a pulley go right there. All right, we're gonna take a second and troubleshoot on this. We're gonna get some bolts into that guy so it doesn't move around, and then we're gonna figure out how we're gonna do this, because that guy right there, we knew it was gonna be a little challenging, but we weren't quite sure how challenging. Very challenging. With our new water pump, the thermostat housing, so there's a nice little thermostat in here and this little outlet port right here that is getting in the way of our presumed raw water pump placement. So what we're going to do is this pulley, you could tell, really isn't doing much. And this belt, by the way, is just something we had left over from the Raptor project. This is not the belt that we're using. It's just scrap that we had. So we're going to take this pulley off of here because it's not really doing anything. And then we're going to try and apply it right here. We're going to have to build a custom spacer and stuff like that, but spacing is not as important since the pulley doesn't hold the ribs of the belt, holds the back side of the belt. If we get a pulley here and it's large enough, I think we'll be able to cruise right around that thermostat and then back down onto our water pump. So we're going to go ahead and switch those around right now and see if we can gain the clearance. Operation Pulley Move was a great success. We had to build a little standoff spacer right here behind it, but that's good. And now it gives us the ability to put the water pump where we had originally planned. So that means we're all set and it's time to start building brackets. We got this bracket that needs to be built right here, and then a big one for the alternator up here. And our new friends at Miller just sent us some stuff that's gonna make making these brackets a lot easier. You guys know that we have used Miller welder for a long time, and we needed to get a plasma cutter, and they sponsored us with a plasma cutter. So we're gonna open this up. I think we should have some protection stuff in here, and then we should have a plasma cutter in here. Miller really went above and beyond. I thought we were just kind of getting a plasma cutter and maybe a mask, but we got this awesome welding jacket with leather sleeves for protection, lots and lots of welding gloves, and a lot of work gloves, which is cool because it's basically a glove shortage in America right now, and an amazing, amazing welding mask. This is gonna be huge for us welding here in the shop because we've never had a good welding mask in the shop before, so that is so cool. And onto the plasma cutter. Looks little, but is actually quite powerful. Spectrum 625 Extreme. This thing can cut through, what is it, 3/8 aluminum and 5/8 steel. And the cool thing for us is since we only have one 220 outlet that runs to the air compressor, we can use this off of 110 as well. And look at how it comes in this awesome, like, it's got its own box and everything. Woo, so nice. Huge thanks to Miller for hooking us up. This is gonna really help, you know, keep us being able to build and keep fabricating and doing cool stuff. So there's gonna be a link in the description to Miller. Huge thanks to them. All right, so now we gotta set up our brackets, trace them out, and then test. Well, first we'll probably test out the plasma cutter, do a couple cuts, and then get a bracket going. Well, that was super freaking cool. I haven't used a working plasma cutter in forever, and I just cut 2 brackets out of 1/2-inch aluminum. Now, it says it only goes up to 3/8 aluminum, but I knew Miller would underestimate its power. Got through 1/2-inch aluminum, no problem. So I got my 2 brackets done. I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to Oscar now. He's gonna be cutting a few out of steel and a few out of aluminum. All of our brackets are cut out and cooling. We're trying to let them cool slowly, that way they don't warp at all. So you got some steel ones down there and the aluminum ones right here. This is kind of what the edges look like after the cut. It's very rough, and then we have to come back in with the flap disc and clean them all up and make them nice and rounded. The inside of these is going to be a total pain, but it'll be worth it when they're all done. So we're going to get started. Several hours later, and brackets have been cleaned up. You can see how nice that finished product came out. And we are starting to drill some holes. We're drilling holes, and I've even finished out the small ones and got the alternator mounted up. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. So I'm going to drill the holes in here, get the secondary alternator mounted up, and we have the 2 steel plates right here that do the raw water pump. Now these connect to another set of aluminum blocks, is kind of what we're calling them. They have 2 holes in each one that bolt into the block, and then we're going to have a through hole that we drill all the way through here. On the face of this, a bolt is going to come slide all the way through. So that's kind of the last bracket that we're getting started on building right now. It's 2 of these out of solid aluminum blocks. So Oscar's going to work on fabricating those up, and I'm going to work on getting the holes drilled in these guys and getting everything else mounted up in the meantime. In the spirit of SEMA, we decided to work really late at night to get this done. Don't really know why, but it's 1 a.m. and I've got an update for you. Big right alternator bracket basically done. Well, the bracket itself is done. The alternator is mounted. It's all straight. Everything's dead in line. The only issue is we don't have a bolt right now that's long enough to do. In the end, it will be spacer from here to here, spacer from here to here, bolt running all the way through to get that maximum strength. But at 1 a.m., you know, the hardware stores are closed. We can't buy a bolt that long. So I will get a bolt that long tomorrow, and that will wrap that up. I think I'm going to need to add another pulley in right about here. Not exactly sure where. Once we get everything kind of in here and we start to make the picture, I'm going to work on getting that pulley figured out. And you can see Oscar's got the plate down there, and then we have the 2 holes where the plates mount into the cubes. And then Oscar's doing some precision drilling down this thing so we can get a bolt all the way through the body of it. We have to have a bolt run through the body of both of these guys. And then we'll be ready to bolt those in. But we did measure them up, we test fit them up, and they fit perfectly. All right, we got it all sorted out. So the water pump, the raw water pump, is installed for the first time. We got our cube bracket here, goes through, bolt going in, and then also down here. We don't have the right hardware. You can see we're just kind of doing what we can with different hardware pieces until we can go to the hardware store tomorrow and buy all the right hardware. So that's in, that lines up directly with the harmonic balancer. This is the official routing for the belt. It's gonna go up through that's an auto tensioner right there, through there. Now this is where, since our belt's not long enough, it's gonna go down underneath there and then up around the alternator. So we got a bit of a shopping list tomorrow. We need to replace a bolt that I snuck right here. We got to buy an extra pulley because I stole that from the kit for the other engine, and do some small stuff when we get some more hardware. But that is basically it. That is, we've built 2 of everything here, so 2 of each bracket and everything like that, and that is the setup for the accessory drives for each engine. So when we get the 2 LSX engines, when they do arrive, we'll be bolting all this stuff up, and it should all be like dead nuts. And it is straight. We've been using our straight edge alignment tool, and everything is straight within thousandths of an inch. Very, very cool. This one ended up being a late one. It's way, it's like 1:45 now. I know a lot of you guys want an update on the engine. Anyways, the LSX engines being built by Texas Speed are still a little bit of a ways out. They had a lot of orders that were in before mine, and we don't skip the line, so we have to wait for those orders to get fulfilled and other people to get their engines that ordered theirs first, which is just the only fair and right way to do it, and then our engines will be built. So we're just being patient and doing what we can in the meantime, and all this is very good work. That doesn't matter which engine we do it on, this is the same block. So in the next episode, I think we'll be figuring out how to do all of the exhaust and the exhaust cooling and the heat exchangers and everything else like that. But this was a big breakthrough. We took a LS engine and figured out how to mate a marine transmission to it, and then built our own marine accessory drive system that will do exactly what our boat needed. Pretty cool stuff, if I do say so myself. All right guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace!